study,
and play come together on a Windows 11 PC.
And for a limited time, college students get
The best of both worlds.
Get the Unreal College Deal. Everything you need to study and play with select Windows 11 PCs. Eligible students get a year of Microsoft 365 Premium and a year of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with a custom color Xbox wireless controller. Learn more at windows.com/student offer. While supplies last. Ends June 30th. Terms at aka.ms/collegepc.
Welcome back to another episode of Susan Lopresti Wellness, Mind, Body, and Soul. This is the podcast where we explore the highs, the lows, and everything in between when it comes to a woman's life, her health, and all aspects of navigating the midlife landscape. I'm your host, Susan Lopresti, and today I have a guest with me. His name is John Solleder. John has been a top earner in 4 network marketing companies in a 42-year career. He holds the distinction of being the first President's Cup recipient for one company, as well as being the Dr. Buonous award recipient for a second company. He has also consulted with several of the top brands in the industry and worked alongside owners, top earners, as well as product formulators. He has written 4 books, Moving Up, Volume 1, Volume 2, Moving Up 2020, as well as Leave Nothing to Chance. These last 2 books were Amazon bestsellers. He is hosting the Leaving Nothing to Chance podcast for the last 5 years and interviewed many of the top luminaries in the direct selling industry. This includes the last protege of Napoleon Hill, as well as many of the top earners in the industry. Some of these industry icons date back to the 1960s, where the current MLM industry had much of its own design and growth. On a personal side, he has earned black belts in judo and BJJ, as well as participating in wrestling, sambo, which is a Russian wrestling, earlier in life. In his later years, he participated in many bench pressing competitions. He doesn't believe age should keep one out of athletics. Along with his wife, Josie, they have 4 children, Camille, Alice, Fred, and Grace. John is also a dog lover. He is a guy who believes in health and maintains a vegan diet and eats mostly raw foods these days. He is also a huge fan of Wim Hof and goes in the cold daily. He also has licenses in the insurance industry, as many people ask his opinion on financial matters. Many years ago, he created a program for debt reduction that many companies have copied. And without further ado, John, welcome to my podcast. I'm so excited to have you here, and I'm excited for our conversation.
Well, Susan, thank you so much for the invite, and love your show, love what you're doing, and always good to talk to another New Yorker. I've been down here in Dallas forever, so it's nice to talk to somebody who talks properly. I mean, anyway, that's
I was just going to say, what gives it away that I'm a New Yorker? Anyway, okay, we'll leave it at that, right? I wanted to start by asking you, what made you get into your business so early on? Like, you're almost like a pioneer in this industry.
Yeah, great question. First of all, it was one of those things where I could not find a job in 1983. And a friend of mine came in, a guy who I had wrestled with in New Jersey. He was a couple years older than me. He had went to Lehigh University. I went to Seton Hall University. And I was about to graduate, and he came into my office. I was selling health club memberships part-time for another old wrestler, a guy named Dave Brzezinski. And he told me about a business. And he said, you can start this business for $32. And I already knew I was pretty good at sales. Okay. Like I knew that I had a gift for talking to people. Even though I was a little bit shy, believe it or not. But I said, let me get started, and I did. And the very first month, I made $800. Now I don't know if you remember 1983, Susan, like I do.
I do. I was 23 years old.
I was 20, so people didn't use credit cards. So when I said I made $800, I had $800 in my wallet.
Right.
So I would take my girlfriend out, or I'd go out for a slice of pizza or whatever, and pay for gas, whatever. I actually had cash, and so that was very, very exciting. And then May 18th of '83, then President Reagan spoke at my college commencement, and he said two things that have stayed with me some 42 years later. One, he spoke about the fact that even though capitalism is not perfect, it's the only ism that actually has freed people. And he used several examples. And one that was going on right then was the fact that the East German people wanted what the West German people already had. They have everything from choices in colors of clothing to choices in food to choices in technology, which didn't really exist like it does today, but simple things that did exist at that time. But then he really hit a nerve with me, because he said that in 1932, when he had graduated from college, same thing, there were no jobs, just like in 1983. And he went back to being a lifeguard in Illinois. And when he did that, he met a very successful businessman who he knew, and he asked him for some advice. He said, "How do you become successful?" And that businessman said to him, and they used to call Reagan Dutch in those days, which made no sense because he was Irish and German. So I don't know where Dutch came from. But anyhow, he said, "Dutch, what you do is you basically find a business that you like, find a mentor that can teach you." So all of a sudden, I'm starting to think, well, wait a minute. In the last 30 days, while I've been out seeking a regular job, being employed by somebody else, I made $800 in my own business. What if I worked a little harder the next 30 days? And I did. And I went to my very first real business meeting, and I'm not proud of this, but I didn't even own a suit at that point, or a tie for that matter. I never had a need for one. So I went to my very first business meeting up in Hartford, Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went to that meeting, the gentleman doing the meeting said these words: "For things to change, you have to change. And for things to get better, you have to get better." And what that did was it kind of woke me up to the fact that I needed to work on me as a brand. And network marketing was perfect for me because I could be in it. First of all, it was inexpensive. It's still inexpensive today compared to other business models. Number one. Number two, I could be self-employed. So I could work when I want, not work when I want. I want to take off tomorrow and go to the beach. I can, right? Because I'm not touching somebody else's time clock. And I like that independence about the business. But the other thing I liked was when the guy said that, the guy named Larry Thompson said those words, and it turned out that the great Jim Rohn had written those words. But it just dawned on me that I needed to start to work on my self-development, my skills. So what I did, I always liked to read, but I started to go to the public library, and anything I could get my hands on. As a Man Thinketh, for example, by James Allen. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace T. Wattles. The Greatest Salesman in the World, Og Mandino. I mean, all of these titles of all these people, I had no idea who any of them were, by the way. Okay, I didn't really care, frankly. What I cared about was the fact that I could read their words and I could take from them what I wanted to take from them and apply them to my business and to my life. So I started to work really hard on me. I started to work hard on my writing skills, my verbal skills. As I said, I was actually a little shy in those days. And I had to work on getting over some of my shyness. I was the guy, I'd go to a party and I'd be in the corner by myself. And there were no cell phones to look at. These days I'd be the guy. Back then I was just kind of go, well, let me be in the corner. Maybe nobody will talk to me. I was not a social butterfly. So I had to work on overcoming, my fear of talking to somebody. And of course, my fear of rejection. What if somebody says no? Oh, my Lord. So I had to overcome all of those things. But how I did that was working really, really hard on me. And I still, after 42 years, this guy still needs work every single day, physically, spiritually, on my self-development. So I'm still working at those things at 64, like I did at 20.
Yes. I love network marketing for that reason. One of those reasons is you're always working on yourself and personal development and reading and learning. And I was in corporate America for 27 years, and we didn't get too much of that. It wasn't about that at all. It was just the grind and the paycheck week to week. It was always the same. Every year you got your 3% increase, but you really didn't have much control over your own career unless you started jumping around to different companies. But network marketing, there was always a lot of personal development, and I love that. So what made you, how did you settle on one particular company to represent, or did you jump around a little bit until you found your niche?
I jumped around. I've basically been in 4 companies in my career. The fourth one is my current company that I've been at for 29 years. So I kid my wife all the time. I said, my network marketing company has lasted longer than our marriage has. We're married 23 years, going on 24, and I've been with my current company, Immunitech, 29 years. But how I arrived at my current one, and this is my advice to anybody, same thing that President Reagan was told by that successful business guy: find one that you like. If you like nutrition, you might like what I do. If you like skincare, there's great skincare companies. If you like legal services, there's companies that sell that. If you like insurance, there's companies that sell that. Find something that fits you, that you're comfortable with, that you like, that you're passionate about. And my litmus test on that, Susan, I'm glad you asked, is if I wouldn't own the product as a customer, then I should not be a distributor.
Right.
And that's something people sometimes miss. They go to a meeting and they get all hyped up and excited because they hear somebody making, 10,000 a month or 50,000 a month or $1 million a year income. And then they realize, I don't even like the product or the brand. Well, you're not going to be successful. Let me just be very honest with you up front, folks. Find a thing that turns you on. Okay, for me, it's nutrition. I'm a nutrition guy. I love nutrition. I've been an athlete my whole life. I understand performance and ergogenics and all of that. So for me, my current brand is perfect. Okay, because it identifies a lot of those different things. Okay, I use other brands from other companies for things, other things in my house that I use as a customer. But to that point, if I wouldn't be a customer, probably shouldn't be a distributor, because you're going to go through, some ups and downs as a distributor. Companies go through ups and downs. You're going to go through them as an individual. So at the end of the day, you better really like the brand. And for me, I've had a love affair for 29 years with glutathione and research associated with it. And I've been part of the development, if you will, of that, as far as people, finding out about it. So that for me has been perfect. But my advice to any of your listeners, once again, find something that if you said, I would spend my hard-earned money on this product or this service, then that's something you could go out and easily represent.
Yeah.
And if not, there's plenty of choices out there. Well, a lot of good choices, a lot of good companies today.
Talk to us for a moment about residual income.
Hmm.
Is
Well,
that part of your business model that with the company you're with?
Absolutely, absolutely. Residual income is business that you build today that's going to pay you tomorrow. So let me give you a couple of examples. If I was in I am in the book writing business. I've written 4 books. These 2 titles are the main titles, but I get a residual every time I sell a book. For example, I wrote these books 6 years ago. Okay. But you take somebody famous, right? You take Frank Sinatra, right? We're both New York, New Jersey people. Frank Sinatra, even though he's dead, his family's still getting royalties on what he did. Well, most of us don't have Frank's skill. But if you're in network marketing, the business that you build, the customer base that you build, the user base that you build with your distributors, you're going to get paid on that every single month, as long as your company's in business and as long as you do whatever it is that the company requires in terms of personal volume to get paid. So why not build an income? I started building my current income 29 years ago when I was in my 30s. I'm now in my 60s. And believe it or not, there's people that I started on that brand way back then that still buy it every month, that I get paid every single month like clockwork on their personal purchase. I've got friends in other companies. I have a friend that was one of the original people in Herbalife, for example.
Mm-hmm.
In 1980, he still gets paid on business he built in 1980. I met years ago. I was doing some work with the Shackley Corporation on a consulting level. And I went to a meeting in San Francisco, and the new owner was a friend of mine, Roger Barnett. He invited me to this meeting. So I went and I sat with these people who had been distributors 1959. I wasn't born in 1959.
Wow.
And they were still making money, right? And then I met grandchildren of people who had helped to start that company that were still getting paid on businesses that their deceased grandparents had started, as an example. So, it's a great business model for average people, right? Because what's your other alternative? Well, your other alternative is to start a franchise, right? Which, let's face it, that's a 7-figure commitment. Most people don't have that kind of cash. It's a great business model, by the way, if you have money. However, most people don't. So network marketing is the alternative for what I say, the average person's best opportunity is in network marketing. Start for a few $100s, okay? Build your business over time. Most people are part-time, okay? This is something that I preach all the time too. This is a business where 99% of the people are part-time. This is extra income for your family with the idea that you're going to do some things with it. Okay, you're going to save for retirement. You're going to pay for maybe your kid's education fund. You're going to put some money away for your future, perhaps in a long-term care policy or different financial vehicles that you're going to fund that maybe your regular job can't. Fund those things from your network marketing business part-time while you're building a business that when that day comes that maybe you retire from teaching school or driving a truck or working in construction, that you're going to have that income as another source of income in your retirement years that's going to go on long past the time that you build it. So people say, well, I'm going to wait till I retire to start. No. Don't do that. Start now.
Mm-hmm.
Build that business up. And then when the time comes, maybe you want to retire early. Maybe for health reasons you have to, or maybe you just say, you know what? I don't want to do what I'm doing anymore. Let me really now get in and dedicate myself full time. But build that base while you're part-time. That's my suggestion to most people.
Right. So let's talk about the products now. What is the number one product that really put this company in business, let's say, or keeps it thriving?
Well, our main product is a product called Immunical. And Immunical is a product of research that began, believe it or not, in 1975 at McGill University in Montreal, Canada. And started by two researchers, a gentleman named Dr. Gustavo Buonous and his colleague, Dr. Patricia Kongshab. And she's still alive, by the way. She's in her 90s, still going strong.
Wow.
And they started to collaborate on, let's find a product for the immune system. And just by luck, by 1978, they had developed the very first research paper on that substance, okay, which at that time wasn't even called Immunical. They didn't even have a name for it yet. But they did that. They started to work and collaborate with a number of different institutions around the world, including Dr. Luc Montagnier over at the Pasteur Institute in Paris, who eventually won a Nobel Prize for discovering the HIV virus. Dr. Wolf Droge, who worked in a number of different fields in Germany. This guy was so smart, by the way, Susan. He was a Max Planck fellow. And Max Planck, most people aren't aware of him here in North America, but Max Planck was Albert Einstein's mentor.
Wow.
As well as Robert Oppenheimer, as well as Max Born, like all these great physicists and quantum physicists, like the smart of the smart.
Mm-hmm.
Max Planck was their mentor, so there's the Max Planck Institute. But our guy, his name was Dr. Wolf Droge, he was a Max Planck fellow. Had researched over 300 papers on a number of different topics in the health world. So these are the people that I've been blessed to work with for the last, in my case, 29 years since we began to market this product in a commercial way via network marketing. Because from 1975 until 1996, this was purely a research product. All they did was research around the world on it. 96 is when my mother became ill, and she went to a hospital there in Manhattan. And on the way out, after she got a clean bill of health, but she wasn't healthy. She had a health problem. End of 96, beginning of 97. I was living in Tel Aviv, believe it or not, which is in itself. I was doing a consulting job for a friend of mine in Tel Aviv, Israel. Really interesting part of the world. Having a great time. Weekends I'm I'm not Jewish, so on weekends the city would close down. So I would go to another country. I'd get on a plane. And I'd go to Cairo. I went to Jordan. I went to Italy sometime. Anyway, I was having this terrific lifestyle. I'm single. I got plenty of money. Everything's great. And all of a sudden, I get a call that my mom's sick. So I fly back to New York, and we go through all the procedures. Beginning in '97, I said to her doctor, is there something that she can take, vitamin, herb, something that she could take perhaps to not go the distance with this disease that was in its early stages? And the doctor hesitated, and she said, well, I have a friend at McGill. And I knew McGill for a number of reasons, but I knew of McGill University, the Harvard of Canada. And I said, well, McGill, that's a pretty prestigious place. So we started to use this particular product. My mother was the first customer really here in the United States. She was a retail customer, by the way. So, by the way, your network marketing, this is why you get retail customers, because sometimes they have sons that are great, really good network marketers. So my mom started using the product, and she had good results. 90 days later, I said, okay, I'm back in North America. I need to make a living because I didn't have a multi-level check at that time. So I get on an airplane and I go up to Montreal, and I met Dr. Gustavo Buonous. And when I met Buonous, what was so interesting was that he had just come back from Italy. And he was Italian. He was from the Turin area of Italy. And I just assumed he was on vacation. I said, oh, you're over visiting your family? He said, no, no, no. He says, I was at the Vatican Library studying what Hippocrates had written about the immune system in the original Latin. Now, I'm a business guy. Okay, I'm a marketer. I'm not a doctor. But what that told me was there's a story here. This guy's totally legit. That's number one.
Right.
Not all multi-level guys are. A lot of times these companies just pay these people to say nice stuff. I'm like, wait a minute, this guy is the researcher. He's the reason this company still exists 50 years later, by the way, is the research. And lo and behold, I was so impressed with him that I said, okay, guys, I'm in. What do we do? Where do we start? So I moved to Toronto. I was living between Dallas and New York at the time. I moved to Toronto, Canada, where I knew a lot of people, and we started the business. And 29 years later, we're in 18 countries and still going strong. We were just in Top Doctor magazine, which is a story in itself. If you want me to tell it, I can tell you that story.
Sure.
Well, it's funny how things happen, right? Because like yourself, I've got a podcast that I want you to be a guest on, by the way. We'll send you the stuff afterwards to coordinate that. But I get an email one day back in October. And the email basically says to me, hey, really enjoyed your show, blah, 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 blah. I think I'd be a great guest. Okay. You get those emails from people.
Every day.
So some of them are AI generated, by the way, and some of them are really from people. But either way, so I respond to the email. I get the guy on my show. We become friendly. And I start to tell him about my product, because I tell everybody about my product, including yourself.
Right.
And, some people it's for them, they're interested. And some people just, hey, they don't take supplements, they don't believe in it, whatever, people are people. But anyway, he was interested. So I sent him a little bit of product, and he liked the product. And he said, you should meet my friend Diana. Okay. So I meet his friend Diana. She's from Malibu, California. And she is a medical PR person. She deals with doctors constantly, all kinds of medical people. So she says, you should meet my friend John. Okay. Well, her friend John is a guy named John Hyland. He lives down in Virginia. And he is the publisher of a magazine called Top Doctor Magazine. Goes to medical offices throughout the United States and Canada, to the doctors. This is a magazine they read. And long story short, I was able through John to actually get the CEO of my company on the cover of the magazine this month. Okay. Wow. And we've had about 200,000 independent hits so far to the Top Doctor magazine site. So very, very exciting. Here's a question, right? Because I'm an old man. I'm 64. Does AI work? Well, it turns out Chris wrote to me through AI. So if he doesn't write to me through AI, I don't meet Diana, who introduces me to John, who gets my company now on the cover of his magazine and gets us all with this tremendous exposure, right?
Wow.
So,
what a chain of events, right?
Crazy.
Yes.
Good story. And You couldn't make this stuff up, you know?
No, no. So now let's talk about glutathione. Tell us about that.
Glutathione is in every cell in your body,
Mhm.
but primarily three places: your lungs, your liver, and the whites of your eyes. Okay, so what Immunical basically does, okay, and this is what makes Immunical a little different than any other glutathione supplement that I'm aware of. Okay, so folks, if you know of one, I'm not looking for an argument here. Okay, but your body, when this is some of our research that we've done, by the way, our research is 92 patents on this product. Okay, so this is not, us just making this stuff up. This is going through all sorts of rigorous, results in papers being written at all of these different institutions around the world. Anyhow, what we found was that you've got to give the 3 amino acids that basically build glutathione, you've got to put them in your stomach. And the only way to do that, okay, is to take them prior, okay, in what we call Immunical, so that they get into your stomach. So your stomach actually creates the glutathione that then feeds your cells. Okay. So some people think, well, I can go to the health food store and I can buy glutathione tablets. Well, you can, but you're not going to get a lot of benefit. You've got to basically get it into your gut so that your gut feeds the rest of your body. Okay, that's the real power of Immunical versus other supplements in the glutathione space. And I have this argument all the time with friends of mine that are in different network marketing companies selling glutathione. I'm like, hey, it's great you're making money, but your product doesn't work. And they want to fight me on it. I said, well, I'm not going to fight. I'll send you the research to show you why it has to get into the gut lining basically to be effective. But glutathione, on another note, I work with Dr. Jimmy Gutman. Jimmy's considered to be the world's leading expert on glutathione. He's written umpteen amount of papers and books on the subject. Kind of funny, when somebody tries to compete with us, 9 times out of 10, they're using our research. It's like, I'll show the people the names and go, yeah, that guy works with us, that guy works with us, that guy works with us. And Dr. Gutman, he works with us every single day. But what that relationship's done is it's helped to educate lots and lots of people about glutathione. Like, I go back, for example, to the Top Doctor situation. They've never had a network marketing company on the cover of their magazine in 10 years that they've been in business. And when I first started with them, it wasn't like, hey, write us a check and be on the cover. They weren't looking, they weren't selling subscriptions, they were covers. We had to go through rigorous testing with the doctors that are on their board to talk to the doctors on our board to say this stuff's real and legitimate, okay, and scientifically validated, right? With evidence-based science to support it. We had to go through all of that, so it wasn't like, hey, send me a little product and send me a check and I'll stick you on the cover and say nice stuff about you. It was like, once again, we had to prove our case. Glutathione, even though a lot more people know about it, Susan, than they did, 29 years ago, certainly. 29 years ago, we used to say to people, glutathione, like, because nobody heard of it. And by the way, including our friends in the medical profession, a lot of them we talked to, and they were like, yeah, I remember in medical school, like, they're going to look it up, right? Today, and maybe this is good, okay, because of competition, the word glutathione is out there a lot. You put glutathione in your phone, you're going to find all sorts of things pop up, all different types of brands. But we are we didn't invent glutathione, the good Lord did, but at the end of the day, we found a way to deliver it properly, number one. And number two, we're doing some interesting stuff. Our research runs the gamut. Just in the last couple of years, we've done things on autism, for example.
That's what I want to talk about, the benefits of it, how it's an anti-aging product. Am I correct?
Anti-aging, antioxidant, detoxification, all of the above.
Yes. So tell us about that.
Well, from all of those different things, okay, it's always been said, if you give the body what it needs, the body kind of takes care of itself. Well, glutathione, as we age, it goes down.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why does it go down? Well, a number of different things. Number one, pollution, food quality. Our food quality is terrible in America. It's getting better, but it's really been pretty bad the last number of years. If you smoke, certainly that's don't. But if some people, I realize you do, and once again, all of these things cause stress to the body. Okay. Yes. By getting your glutathione up, what's happening is that your body is going to basically fight some of these things a little bit better. Okay, it's going to help to detoxify. Okay, detoxification is a very, very important thing, once again, especially from the liver and also from the lungs. Okay, those two areas where glutathione is most prevalent in the body, really important to detoxify them. Okay, so when you detoxify anything, what happens is, are you going to get a little bit younger? Well, we can't make that claim, but we
No.
certainly can say, well, look, you're going to certainly feel better. If you feel better, you're probably going to look
Look
better.
better. Right.
Okay? So that's some of the philosophy behind the product. But we've done research. We've just done research on traumatic brain injuries.
Mm-hmm.
And when we started this 29 years ago, in my case, 50 years ago, in the doctor's cases that started it, it wasn't started for that. It was started primarily to look at different things with cancers, and eventually AIDS came along a few years later, right? Which what does HIV stand for, right? It's immune depressed disease, right? So at the end of the day, that's kind of how those guys started. But they even found, like recently, that with the brain, for example, that elevating glutathione helps with traumatic brain injuries. Doesn't mean they're going to go away, but it means that it's going to work better. We did some research on that at the University of Denver with a guy named Dr. Dan Linsman, and once again found that glutathione is great. Now you think about that for a second. If you have kids in sports, my son was a hockey player, my daughter was a figure skater. My son got hit in the head with pucks numerous times, elbows, running to the boards. He played at a high level. He played with big boys, sometimes guys 50 pounds heavier than him, getting hit. How about your kid if he's playing football or rugby or playing soccer? Soccer's notorious for head injuries.
Mm-hmm.
Any of the sports, figure skating, you fall on your head, okay? Gymnastics. I mean, all of these sports, not to mention just the regular life stuff. As we get older, we fall more, okay?
Yes.
So once again, traumatic brain injuries that they found that glutathione once again helps with, and Immunical specifically, obviously the product that we use to do our tests with. Other people use other stuff, so we're finding it in that. So there's really not a whole lot that elevating your glutathione level is not going to help, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
Now, are there people who can't take it? Yeah, there's a couple of people who can. I mean, if you're milk sensitive, for example, because the delivery system it utilizes whey protein. If you have a real true allergy to milk, which most people don't, okay, but there's a handful of people that do, or people who've had transplants, because if you're on a transplant, some of the drugs that they have you on, they don't want your immune system to be elevated for different reasons, and I don't understand all the science of that. I'm not a
Right.
doctor. But basically, I mean, if you contact us, myself about this, I'm happy to send you all the information. If your doctor's interested, once again, we can have them talk to any of our medical people if they're so inclined. We don't run away from the medical profession either. And
Right.
that was another thing to me from a business standpoint, Susan. I spent the first part of my career fighting against the medical people. People would take a supplement that we would sell them, and they take it to the doctor, and the doctor would say, well, show me the research. Well, frankly, there was no research in network marketing companies.
Right.
1996, that changed when Immunotech came along. And it's been a good thing because a lot of our competitors, not only in the immune space, but with other things, have had to spend money to actually research their products to prove the validity of them, so that when the medical profession or the FDA or other government people look at it, they recognize that, okay, this company's actually spent some money. They're sincere on what they're doing. And let me read the science, so to speak. That doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to take our product or love it or say nice things about it. But at the end of the day, at least the information is there that did not exist prior to 1996, frankly. And in my experience, maybe I missed something, but for the most part, I knew most of the companies then. And frankly, it was all anecdotal. It was all, my aunt took the product, had this great result. Well, that's great, but you go to a doctor who went to school for 12 years who says, well, I'm not going to risk my license selling a product because your aunt had a good result.
Right.
But all of a sudden you go, well, here's the 91 patents. Go spend your weekend reading them. Yeah, it changed the game a little bit.
Right. What's another product as part of your company line that's anti-aging, let's say?
We got another product that I really, really love myself. It's called K21.
Okay.
And it's a potassium product, basically a potassium supplement. It's got some different herbs in it, okay, like rhodiola, for example. Rhodiola is an herb I've been familiar with since I worked with a company in the 90s down here in Dallas in the sports nutrition field. used by a lot of athletes. A lot of the old Soviet athletes used rhodiola. Basically, makes you feel better, gives you a little bit more oxygen when you train. Okay, like I trained early this morning. I'm training again this afternoon. So, if you're going to do a couple of workouts a day, you need as much oxygen as you possibly can take. So that's a product that I really promote a lot as well in the athletic community and in the non-athletic community, because it's really good for you. And it tastes good, by the way, also. We've got some additional products, some additional herbal products. So we got one specific for men, prostate product called Magistrel, that unfortunately in my 60s, I need to take it more than I did in my 40s, but that's just part of aging. Really fond of that product as well. We've got our booster products, okay, that go along with Immunical, okay, and they do a number of different things, we have a few different versions of them, but really that was something that I kind of came up with a number of years ago to make the product heavier, because the Immunical is very light. It's like flour. So when you shake it, it's very light. So if you put something with it, so I started to fool around with different green drinks and all sorts of things. And I went to Dr. Gutman and the other medical people, and I said, hey, if we added something to this, it would make the consumability better. And then the company, the new owner, he kind of picked up on it, and he's taking that vertical. So we've got like a hibiscus one and a lemonade flavored one, et cetera, that you can add to the Immunical. And it's got some other nutrients in it, okay, which is good. But, really the other thing it does is just makes the product easier to take.
Right. So if someone's interested in one of the products, they can contact you and buy it from you. Is that the way it works?
Yeah, just I'm going to give you guys all my information.
Yes.
And if you're even just interested in more information at this point, happy to answer you. I'm going to do something crazy. I'm going to give you my cell phone number, but I only answer text. Unless I see who it is calling, I don't answer, because probably like you all, I get like 500, bots a day calling me, trying to sell me all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And if I answered all the calls, I'd never get anything done. So my cell phone number is 972 area code 259-0875. 972-259-0875. You can go to my website, johnsolleder.com, SOLLEDER.com, johnsolleder.com. And also you can listen to our podcast on YouTube, which is under John Solleder. It's also under Leaving Nothing to Chance, but probably easier just go by my name with everything, just, multiple things. You can get our books, or, these are our two books that are still out. I have 4 total, but my first book that I ever wrote was called Moving Up in 2005, believe it or not, Susan, like
Wow.
years ago, hard to believe. But Moving Up 2020 came out in 2020, actually December 2019. And then, of course, Leave Nothing to Chance came out a couple months later. And then this little thing happened called COVID.
Yes, I remember that.
Some people might remember that. And I had to do 2 things that I learned about the hard way. And that was called pivoting and agility. And here's the pivot and the agility. The pivot was, all of a sudden, the 60 cities I was going to be in over the next 12 months around the world, that I would be not only promoting my multi-level business, but also my books. Well, that went away. So what did I do? Well, I went to podcasting, okay, like yourself. And I said, well, that was a way to get my books out so people could have them available. I also created a thing called a Zoomtacular at that time. And the Zoomtacular was, I knew people were home. And everybody was going nuts, right? With being home, you couldn't go here, you couldn't go there. So on Saturday afternoons, twice a month, I had calls where I would get some of our medical researchers and Dr. Gutman and these different people that were important in our company, and we'd do a call about the product and blah blah blah, marketing, etc. And then at the end, I would actually have a disc jockey. And I would say, listen, I know you can't go out and dance tonight. It's Saturday. Go grab your husband, go grab your wife, bring them in and dance. There were a couple times I left the room at the end of the call. I came back, and like a half hour later, people were still dancing, and the disc jockey was still doing his thing. And even a friend of mine, he was going crazy himself being home. So it was like it gave everybody a chance to kind of have some fun. But that was a pivot.
Yes.
Okay. And if you're taking notes, folks, pivoting is really important in business. The other thing I learned was agility.
Okay.
And think of agility from a sports standpoint, right? It's going forward and back and being able to go this way. last year I decided I was going to rededicate myself to the new technologies, like AI, for example. And I started to spend a lot of time reading about it, studying, taking courses on it. Now, I'm no AI expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I said, this is part of where we are today. Yeah, a friend of mine says AI or die. I don't know if it's quite that serious, but you better have a good understanding of it because so much of our economy is based on it and will be based on it going further, down the road. So I started to really do that. Well, that was an agility thing. That was a thing where I said, okay, let me understand it. Now, once again, how do I use it? Well, I use it with my podcasting some. I use it in my multi-level business with my advertising, okay, for example. And I use it every single day to do research, frankly. I'm writing some new books on finance and economics, and I use the AI, frankly, features to do that. Okay, that I've got, once again to do research that otherwise would have taken me thousands of hours to do that I can do in 5 minutes. So, and you say, now, why do you do that? Especially if you're a little older like I am. Say, why do you do that? Because you have to economize time. In any business that you're in, I don't care what you do for a living, any business that you're in, you do what you do best. Okay? In other words, my thing is talking to people. I'm really good at talking to people at this stage of my life and explaining a Munical or network marketing or that sort of thing. That being the case, that's what I get paid to do. All that research that I do, if I can have AI do that, saves me a bunch of time so I can do what I can only do and let the robot do what it does.
Mm-hmm.
That's an example of being agile, for example.
Yes, I love that. I love that. Yeah, I mean, you have to stay up on technology because it's so useful and it's helpful and it's a time saver that you would be foolish not to take advantage of it.
Exactly. And the thing is this too, it's going to evolve to the point where there's really going to be two types of businesses. Those using AI and those out of business.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's the case, well, we might as well we'll go with it, whether you're 64, 74, 84, or 24.
Yes.
And the other part of that is because so many people, like in network marketing, for example, my job now is to replace myself. Now, what do I mean by that? Okay, I've no idea how long I'm going to live, but I'm assumably, if I go by insurance tables, men live to 82. So I got about another 18 years of life. Now, I'm pretty healthy, so I'm probably going to make it further than that, God willing. But, there's no guarantees, right? I could, walk in front of a bus today. Who knows? But all that being the case, I've got to replace myself generationally.
Mm-hmm.
So when I talk to a 21 to 40-year-old, for example, about ideas like clip farming, and they go, how do you understand clip farming? You got gray hair. I'm like, because I study AI and I understand clip farming for how it applies to my business, for example. Okay, I understand some of the other words and terminology that are out there. Am I an expert? Not by any stretch of the imagination. Do I understand how to run a Google ad? Yeah, I do. Okay. Once again, why? Have I run them? Yes, I have. Okay. Do I run them all the time? No, I don't. But at the end of the day, if I don't understand it, how do I have a comprehensive conversation with that 25-year-old who says, hey, John, I want to do what you did. I want to build a huge business around the world in network marketing, but I'm not going to do it the way that you did it. Okay. Because the way that I did it was the hard way.
Mm-hmm.
I lived in Holiday Inns and airplanes. Okay. And I spent a lot of time away from my family over the years in the earlier days, not only with my current company, but with prior companies. Gave me great life experiences, but I missed a lot of birthdays and holidays and events as a result. Younger people aren't going to do that, nor do they need to. A lot of my business I built doing meetings Tuesday nights, Thursday nights, and Saturday mornings in Holiday Inns, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If I said to my son who's 21, come to a Holiday Inn, he'd say, what's a Holiday Inn? Why would I go to one, right? So point being, they're not going to do what you did.
Right.
But if they want a similar result, you got to meet people where they are, which is what today? They grew up with this in their hand.
Yes.
That's one of my dogs.
Cute dog. Cute dog.
That's Apple. She sleeps with me every night. She's my buddy. But anyway,
I don't know if you could see mine. I have a background on.
but my point about all of that is, okay, they grew up with this in their hands. So if I tell them they got to do it my way, they're going to say, well, I'm not interested in your way.
Right.
They're going to use this thing. They're going to use technology because that's what they're familiar with. I started, Susan, when I started my first business in '83, the phone plugged into the wall.
Yeah.
Right? Today we got these things you can launch a space shuttle with them, right? So anyway, point is things have evolved in a really, really good way in terms of technology. But learn enough about it that you can at least have a comprehensive conversation without saying I'm an expert, because I'm not. That my son, 21, he knows 10 times more than I'm ever going to know about everything I just mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And so are his friends.
Yes.
So I'm not going to try to fake them out, but I'm going to say, hey, look, my business still works for you, but let's work it the way that you want to work it. Let's meet you where you are. There's a seat at the table for you in network marketing like there was for me in 1983.
Mm-hmm.
We want you in our business, okay? And that's how you replace yourself. You get that next generation of leadership doing what they want to do the way that they're going to do it. Some of the companies in our industry are run by young people now, where they've actually brought in, 25, 30, 35-year-old people to run them. And while they might not have the experience sometimes that we want, what they do have is the technology experience that is needed to guide that next generation that's going to come after them, frankly, that are, in 5th or 6th grade right now, that are going to be, looking at our industry 10, 15 years from now.
Yes. Where do you see the future of network marketing going?
The industry's had some challenges the last few years, frankly. A couple interesting things happened. Like anything, when it becomes successful, sometimes the wrong people get involved. The investment banking community is not necessarily the wrong people. So please, network marketing friends, don't tell your company owner if he's an investment banker, I said he's a bad guy, because he's not. But what's happened is most of these companies were started by entrepreneurs. You look at like the foundation of the industry is people like Dr. Shackley with Shackley in 1956 when he started. He was a chiropractor. 58 was Rich DeVos and Jay Van Andel with Amway. They were distributors and one of their suppliers that they eventually bought and became the Amway company. Mary Kay Cosmetics, of course, here in Dallas in 1963. Mark Hughes, 1980 with Herbalife. All of those people were distributors like me. They all had the products in the trunk of their car. They went and they came to your house. They presented their products. They presented their opportunity. So they knew what it was like to actually be a distributor.
Right.
Bad news is, bad and good news, that changed about 20 years ago when the investment banking community started to see network marketing companies and saying, wait a minute, we can have 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 sales reps. We don't have to pay their Social Security tax. We don't have to withhold taxes on them. We don't have to do anything. They're all independent contractors. And if they fall and they stub their toe, they don't sue the company because they don't work for the company. They're independent. This is a nice business model. And that was a compliment to people like myself that helped to build the industry and to my mentors, okay, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
However, at the same time, some of those people see our industry as one where they can just go into it, buy companies, take out profit and original investment and close the companies down, or change the business model on the people that built it. We've seen this in the last couple of years, or the last year in particular, 3 times this has happened.
Yes.
Right? With good-sized companies, by the way, not little tiny Mickey Mouse companies, 3 very good-sized companies with decent brands. We've seen that happen. So that's a bad thing, okay? It's not a bad thing that those people are investing. It's a bad thing that those people don't understand that those people in the field are the real product. It's not the stuff in the box. It's the people in the field. That's the value of a company. And they're all not like that, by the way. I know some of these guys, and one of them was my client, actually, that bought a company. So he's not like that. He's done a good job with the company he bought. But my only point about that is that's happened, okay? So on the one hand, it's good because they recognize the validity of our industry. It's bad because they also look at it from a profit center as a bottom line. How do we take all this money out? It's pure bottom line greed. So when you join a company, ask who owns it. Would be my advice, okay? And ask to speak to them if you need to, and ask what is their philosophy, okay? And if their philosophy is one of pure money, 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 and it doesn't have anything to do with reputation or integrity of product, integrity of business, then that's not a company to be in. There's a lot of very good direct selling companies. They'll be direct selling 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 50 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the ones you want to join because you can't get time back. The biggest thing I have, Susan, and as I get older, is I recognize, there's more birthdays and Christmases behind me than ahead of me.
Yes.
So I can't waste my time. Well, neither can you folks. Okay. So make a wise choice. My company, okay, we've been here 29 years. There's other companies that have been around 30, 40, 50 years. They're probably not going to change their business model. They have no need to. They figured out how to make enough profit to make it worth everybody, the corporation, the ownership, and the field, in a fair way. So join an older company. Don't go in a new company. And I hate to say that, but at the end of the day, you don't know with a new company what the future is going to be, what the roadblocks are going to be. Secondly, if a company has been bought by some big investment bank, ask a lot of questions because you want to make real sure philosophically where those people are at, that it's not a short-term thing where, hey, we're going to own this for a few years and then we're going to change the model on you. Because that's just, I have friends that are going through that right now with a company that just did that to them. And boy, oh boy, some of these people's incomes were dramatically large and they lost them. And now they got to do it all over again. Now, here's the one other thing I will say to that from a good standpoint. If you develop the skills, like I recognized in 1983 that I was the brand, it wasn't my company, it was me. If you develop the skills, and unfortunately something like that happens, because there are no guarantees, if that happens, your skills, you go to the next business. Now, that's not comfortable, and financially, it's really not comfortable. But if you develop the skills, believe me, there's always a place for you in network marketing where somebody's going to want you and want your skill set and your contact capital and your abilities to move the market for them. So there's always a place for you and a seat at the table, so to speak. But, if you make a wise choice, like some of my friends did that are in companies for 40 years, that's the best situation. I didn't make that, by the way. I like I said, I changed 3 times till I got to my current company. But whatever you do, it's a great industry still. It's an industry that provides a lot of opportunity for people. A lot of great families have been built as a result. A lot of kids have been educated at good colleges with money mom and dad made from network marketing.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm still a huge fan of our industry.
And there's a lot of great products as well.
Yes, there is.
A lot of the companies have really great products. So John, this was a great conversation. I will make sure that all of your contact information is in the show notes and we'll take it from there. So thank you so much for joining today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Susan. Always a pleasure to be with you, my friend.
Same here.